Okay. All right, we're going to be talking about frequencies and measures of central tendency today. Today's class will really be a major review. First, before we jump into statistics, I understand that you all are taking a class with Dr. Kanuka around quantitative analysis, which is going to review or at least introduce you to a ton of these concepts. But I need to know essentially where you all are today. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth live engagement, a lot of question asking today, because I want to get a feel for where you are. If we have time today, because I obviously have 2 weeks for each major statistical application, we'll get into measures of central tendency, and then we'll get into SPS workflow. I hope all of you were able to get a copy of or be able to download a copy of SPSS. I sent those instructions around, I think, on Thursday. So I'm hoping you all were able to get a copy of that, and make sure there's no one else trying to hop on here. Yeah, here we go. Mr. Phillip was trying to hop on. There we go. All right. So let me go full screen again. So yeah, we'll go over a major review of quantitative concepts, frequencies, measures of central tendency, SPSS workflow. But first, I always like to check in. It's always important for me to sort of get the ice broken every week. We've all had tough weeks, and we've been working hard. And Saturday normally is a day of rest, but want to definitely check in with all of you. If you had a chance, head over to Canvas and download these 4 data sets so that they're ready on your computer to fire up if we are able to get to SPSS workflow today. All right, so just want everybody to sort of kick back, take a second, and tell us, how are you this week? Just share with us. Let's open this up and let's have a quick 5-10 minute conversation about how are you? Just talk to me now.
I'm actually doing quite well. My name is Maurice. Dr. Munn, I wasn't on last week, so hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Maurice Mathis. I am doing very well this week, actually, despite not knowing anything about educational statistics, SPSS, or quantitative analysis. I'm doing very, very well.
Good. Well, this will be a course. It will take us at the speed that we need to go for all of us to be on the same page. Provided you have your books, you have SPSS, you will get through this, and you'll get through this quite well. So it sometimes it sounds daunting, but I've done my very best to make this as accessible and relative as possible. So I'm looking forward to working with each of you on this and getting into your mind with regard to research and how you see the world through a problem-solving lens and a research social justice lens. Perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. I got 12 other folk up here. What's up? Well, at least 11.
I'll go. My name's LaShonda Carver-Moore. I wasn't up here last week either. I'm kind of like Maurice. I don't know anything about statistics except what I hear teachers teach about, and maybe a little bit that I've read as we go through some of the research classes. But this week, I would say I'm a little stressed. We're trying to open 19 middle schools online, and parents are frantic. So I have to respond to the frantic. So, just a lot to do to try to get my lens a little bit more clear and focused.
Which county are you in?
I'm in Cumberland.
You're in Cumberland? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I am a health policy analyst at the think tank that I work. Um, and so I did a visualization that I'm going to share with you all. So just to sort of get a feel for who's opening remote and who's not. Are you all able to see this?
Yes.
So a lot of
Yes.
what I do is play with numbers, visualize them, and try to communicate them to partners and stakeholders and stuff. And so one of the things that I gave a presentation yesterday, and I was interested in sort of seeing where the death rate around COVID-19 was versus where people were opening up face-to-face hybrid versus remote. And so all the blue counties are primarily remote. Every system has nuances. But this is a very basic level statistics. I mean, this is representing data or quantitative analysis. Being able to take this data here and visualize it in a way that folks can sort of get an idea. So the variation we see here in what you see in color in blue and red is a categorical variable, whether they opened hybrid or remote, or are they a mixed system where they have more than one system and they both decided to go separate ways, which makes me question effectiveness in terms of virus mitigation, but I digress. The circles that you see here are COVID-19 deaths per 100,000. And so I always use that measure because it's fine to talk about how many deaths are in Mecklenburg County. It's fine to talk about how many deaths are in Guilford, Wake, Buncombe, and Hanover County, but you also have large populations. So if you're only talking about how many deaths there are, without making it relative to their overall population, then you're going to sort of miss the point. So using the equation to bring it down to 1,000 per 10,000 per 100,000 always makes it relative. And what you see here are in counties like Duplin, where they have a couple of meat processing plants, or I think they have some in Chatham as well. You see the death rate, nursing home outbreak in Northampton County, Vance County. So thankfully, a lot of these systems are going remote for the first couple of weeks because they recognize that their numbers are, particularly higher than other places. But here in Columbus County, where there's not a ton of resources, anyone from Columbus County here? Good. So they are planning to reopen in a hybrid manner, and so it's and their deaths per 100,000 are near the top of the state. So
that's where I'm doing my internship at with the superintendent in Whiteville City Schools.
Crap. So at any rate, there we go. Not to talk bad about Columbus County, but I do sort of question, the rationale there, but whatever. But what I also did was there are other variables of interest when you mouse over these counties. So one thing that's interesting to me is the percent of the county that has access to broadband and that does not. And almost 40% of that county does not have access to internet, according to the 2018 American Community Survey. And I have witnessed that firsthand. I went down to Bolton to do an event around community economic development, and they were telling me that one side of the street had internet and the other side did not. I'm not sure if that played a part in their decision to offer a hybrid model, but there is significant portions of the state that do not have access to any kind of internet, according to definitions given to us by the U.S. Census Bureau. I'll stop talking. I can go on and on and on because this is, I've always been sort of interested in the intersection between decisions made that affect health outcomes and affect health access, even if they're tied to other policy areas. Again, I'm a health policy analyst, but I understand that health and issues of health are not siloed. They're social determinants of health. And if we're sending kids back to school in the midst of a pandemic, there's some implications that we could, health implications, particularly since about 88,000 seniors live with 120,000 school-age children. So I found that to be pretty fascinating in North Carolina. So if there's any sort of, spread, there could be folk at risk. I've talked enough. Anyone else want to sort of share with me how your week went? Everyone doesn't have to go. I'm not going to force everybody to talk, but there's a couple of other questions. I want everybody to jump into a couple of the other ones.
Good. I'll go ahead. Speaking of what you just said, I'm currently at my school right now. We're giving out devices for those that do have broadband at home. So to get ready for our remote learning, and that's been 3 days this week. So I know Cumberland County, we're working hard to get those devices in everyone's hands so we can open school on Monday remotely. So it's been a chore, but it's good. People are very patient with us when they have to wait in line and everything else because they see we're working hard and we're trying to get them ready.
Nice. And you said you were in Cumberland.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good to meet you, Mr. Davis.
I can go next. I wasn't here last week. I'm Tanya Higgins. I'm the principal of Lake Rim Elementary in Cumberland County.
Okay.
I'm with Brady. I'm not at my school right now, but I will be at 1 o'clock for the 4th time this week to give out devices.
Oh my God.
I had 85 on my 3rd pickup left over yesterday, and unfortunately the ones that are coming are the ones that aren't ready yet, and the ones that are ready weren't coming. So we've given out already over 200 devices this week. And so currently I'm pretty exhausted, and I'm just trying to remain positive for my staff and my parents and do the best that I can to be customer service oriented for them, because parents and staff are freaking out. And I'm just trying to calm those waters. So I'm pretty beat.
Well, thank you for it. And my wife and I went to IKEA, I think about 3 weeks ago. We were in Charlotte, and she was talking to me about, she's coming into the system. And she and I were talking about, just the process. And I think there was another lady who was there from Statesville or something. They were talking about the challenges, the things that they never thought they'd have to face and are facing now. And so it just occurred to me, I just said, thank you for your service, because you all are doing so much more than you ever thought you'd sign up for. And I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart, particularly principals who, just principals. It's just incredible. I mean, you're doing an incredible amount of work. The school that my 9-year-old goes to, my wife and I were just blown away with how integrated and how just, how prepared. And, we're all techie. We love internet, and we love, being able to access things virtually. And you all have just done an incredible job. And so I just want to thank you for that. I just want to point your attention to this other map that I did around internet access in communities of color in North Carolina. And so what you see here are in darker red are census tracts. So that gives us a better idea of things on a neighborhood level. And what we see here, in particularly Eastern North Carolina and in Robeson County, Anson County, and in Scotland County, there's huge swaths of neighborhoods that just don't have access to internet. So, but when you scroll in and go to places in Cumberland County and other places, you'd be shocked that sometimes it's not an infrastructure issue, because clearly this is Durham County. That's Alamance. Yeah, and that's big. Yeah, and that's, well, doesn't want to, I don't think that, yeah, that's Gilbert. Yeah, so sometimes it's not an issue of infrastructure. So at any rate, that's the kind of stuff that I do. But it's just I do thank you, each and every one of you, for the work that you're doing, because it's one thing this pandemic has done is shown us, where the gaps are in terms of access, healthcare access, workforce industry alignment, structures. And so all of us are being asked to step up in one way or another, and do more than we signed up for. So thank you. Anybody else?
Dr. Munn?
Yeah.
I will need some assistance. I thought I had SPSS and I was having some problems with it, so I wanted to reinstall, and now I keep on receiving a message that says maximum zip file size, limited reach, zip file size cannot be greater than 100. And I received that on all 3 devices that I'm trying to reinstall SPSS to.
Get with me. I'm happy to get with you offline. I sincerely doubt that we're going to get the SPSS today.
Okay.
A ton of review material. Which unzip program are you trying to use?
I used both the one that you said 7-zip and the WinZip. I've tried 2 different unzipping
And this
programs.
is a Windows device?
Yes.
Okay, some unzip programs don't like these really, really big ones, but I'll get with you on that.
Thank you.
I had to use an archiver zip thing because it didn't like my system one. So I had real problems installing. So anyone who has any issues installing, please get with me so I can make sure you get it on there. I don't think we're going to get the SPSS today.
Gerald, I saw somewhere something about, are you doing like a subfolder? It says if you just try it on your desktop even. Did you try that?
Trying to add
Where
it
you
to
unzip it to, if you put it into a subfolder, it'll only work to a certain size. But if you just try to like unzip it straight onto your desktop, then it should be able to do it.
I'll try that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right. We're going
Good
to.
morning, Dr. Munn.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, well, good morning. Hello, this is Vonda Martin Jenkins. Excuse me, wasn't with you last week, but I just wanted to say good morning and introduce myself.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
And good morning, Dr. Munn as well. My name is Cynthia Simons. I was not with you last week either. Just wanted to say good morning, and I'm gonna represent Wake County Public Schools.
Wake County, that's what I'm talking about. Good stuff, good stuff. I live in Cumberland, work in Wake, but I've not been to my office since March. So,
Wow.
well, I've gone up to pick up some stuff.
Where's your office located?
On Dawson Street.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we got out of there and didn't never looked back. So it's been work from home since then. But yeah, Wake is awesome. Wake's an incredible district. It's got challenges. It's got but it's also it's interesting. So looking forward to calling on you when we're thinking about research problems and questions and things like that. All right, anybody else? If not, let's go. What was the highlight for those of you who've not jumped in? What was the highlight of your week? And gosh, I sort of want to go first, but I'll defer. I'll defer to anyone else who's bright and optimistic on this overcast day.
The highlight of the week?
Highlight of the week.
Yesterday around 4 o'clock, I was able to go home.
All right, cool. I heard that. It's tough to say. I'm a huge Cam Newton fan. I think my highlight that comes to mind was seeing him in the Patriots jersey. I'm not a Patriots fan, but I'm super happy to see him gainfully employed. Assuming there's going to be a season this year, we'll see. I'm getting a lot of reactions here on my a lot of head nods and head shakes and stuff. So getting a lot of mixed reactions here. All right. Anybody else? Highlight of the week.
So yesterday I went out to Jacksonville where I coach 10 teachers. And so I was able to meet each of them in person, just because if I'm going to be coaching them virtually, I really wanted to start building a relationship face-to-face first. So I was able to meet all of them. And that was just good because even the ones that didn't want to see me, the principal took me to their rooms to see them. So And I'm coaching middle school this year, which is going to be fun, and a PE teacher. So I'm really excited to help her. She's a first-year PE teacher, having to figure out PE virtually, and when they're face-to-face, how to do it 6 feet apart. So I'm really going to be a lot of emotional support for them more than anything else this year, I know. But it's just great to meet excited young people that really want to be in schools even during this time.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. That was an interesting drive as well. I'm sure you saw a lot of North Carolina, I imagine. A pretty gorgeous day. All right. Anybody else on highlight of the week?
Yes. Good morning, Cheryl Thomas. The highlight of my week was meeting my parents and my students that I will be teaching this year. Very interesting bunch, but able to connect and start building that relationship. Also on my team, out of 4 teachers, I have 3 brand new teachers on my team. So yeah, it's just going to be a very interesting year, but just building relationships is the key, and putting that traditional contact info out. I got up the next morning and I think every parent I had emailed me, but that's a good thing because I took the time and just emailed them back, even if it was just good morning, good to hear from you. So building that relationship and looking forward to a great year.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I forgot. No, so my highlight of the week, I got promoted to senior policy analyst. That was a highlight of my week. So I'm sorry, I completely blanked.
Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Nice.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So I've heard you over the last 28 minutes say everything except for the fact that you are a professor at Fayetteville State University. What is that tie-in?
What is the what?
What is the tie-in? Like, are you're an assistant professor, or you're a visiting professor, or
I'm an
adjunct? Okay,
yeah,
all
I'm
right,
an
gotcha.
professor. I am. I fell in love with academia when I was pursuing my MPA, and went on to get my PhD. And around the time of Mike Brown, and so I made a very conscious choice to go to an HBCU for my for that training. And I call it training because you should always come out of a graduate program with something different to offer in terms of a toolkit. So yeah, love academia, but my mother also sort of, who was a professor before me, sort of instilled that love. But yeah, picked up a background, pretty strong background in quantitative analysis and statistics. And I understood, immediately, one, I could get out of my program quicker with a visitation with a quantitative perspective, and two, just recognizing, coming from a policy and political background, how important numbers were in terms of shaping the narrative and things of that nature. So I was given an opportunity to take that and apply it to being to academia. Back in my alma mater, I graduated from Fayetteville State in 2002, and in a degree in political science. And my parents, way back in the day, met and got married at Fayetteville State. So Fayetteville State is a part of my heart, and I absolutely love it. So being here and being able to teach is a it's an honor. But I try not to take the traditional professorial, all powerful role. I want to be your partner. All of you are professionals and have accomplished just as much, if not more, than I have. So I want to be a partner in your understanding and learning about statistics and how to apply it to your day-to-day life, and more importantly, your dissertation, so you can get out of here, if that should be the path that you should go. Mrs. Thomas, before I forget, I want to sort of jump on your point. about teachers, first-time teachers. That's an incredible dissertation. Probably not for you all, but I would be interested to see, I would be fascinated to read an abstract or dissertation or journal article around how first-year teachers perceived their experiences was going to be going through undergrad, and then what their actual experience, what they actually felt after going through a year of virtual learning. That's a dissertation. I think that's a dissertation for somebody coming along now to sort of be keeping an eye on. Fascinating topic. It's something that's never happened, and it will certainly add to the body of knowledge. But I hope to answer your question, Maurice. I just, absolutely love it. Love, research. And what I do, in my primary role is not much different than what a professor would do. It's just that I've had an incredible opportunity to work with one of the state's leading, think tanks, and just currently in that point in my career, but love college, love graduate school, and love having the opportunity to work with each and every one of you. All right. Cool. So how do you plan to spend the rest of your weekend? This can be real short. Your weekend, I assume, is going to start at 11:51. So
I'll go first. I'm going to play with SPSS to continue this assignment we have for Dr. Kanuka.
Oh, so y'all, okay, cool. So they got you, so he's got y'all working on SPSS now. Nice.
We just started, Dr. Munn, so this is our first one.
Yeah.
But yes.
We have it downloaded. We have not worked on it yet. Some of us anyway.
Yeah. Okay. What does he have you working on specifically?
About coding. Something about.
Yeah, coding is important. So coding is like in a very basic level. I'm just in a basic sense. SPSS doesn't recognize. It's a program. It doesn't recognize words like male, female, red, black, blue. And you may want to, in terms of like frequency, be able to sort those things out. So for coding, if you have red, black, blue, you can code red 1, blue 2, and black 3, and that way, and assign it in the variable view in SPSS. I'll show you how to do that, or he'll show you how to do that. And that way, SPSS can know how many reds there are, how many blues there are, how many blacks there are, or how many males and females are in this data set. How many Acuras are in the parking lot. You get my point. And those are all categorical variables being converted to something quantifiable that SPSS can then analyze for you and then give you data around. That makes sense? But that's cool. Actually, what I'm gonna start doing, normally I teach both of those classes. That's a lot of work, teaching the quant course and then the statistics course, because they sort of go in sequence. But I'm super happy. So I'll probably be checking in just to see where you all are on that. All right. But thank you for that. I appreciate that, Mrs. Your name's not coming up. Anyway, what's your last name?
Mitchell.
There you go, Mitchell. The team. There we go. Sweet. All right. Anybody else? Anybody doing any gardening?
I'm going to Wilmington tomorrow to my daughter's new home, and she's got a jungle. She's in Wilmington.
Yeah.
And the house she just bought had gone through 2 hurricanes, and the owners were renting it, and they did nothing. So yeah, I don't know that I'm going to do the yard work, but I'll put away all of her kitchen stuff and watch her out the window.
I heard that. Cool. I wish there were a way that I could get this. Anyway, oh, there is. Let me play that from window. All righty. So we're going to go over a review of quantitative concepts. And again, I'm going to be asking a ton of questions because I want to know where you are in terms of understanding just basic things around quantitative analysis. So again, this is going to all be in I always upload all the slides, and so you don't have to worry about taking copious notes. This will all be here for you to have access to. But a theory generally is defined as a set of interrelated constructs and propositions that presents an explanation of a phenomena that makes predictions about the relationships between variables relevant to the phenomena. That's a very, very complex way of trying to say theories explain the things that we think about in the world. So there's a lot of theories as to what causes or exacerbates poverty. There are a lot of theories as to what, is creating global warming or climate change. And so oftentimes we'll say this thing has an effect on that thing, and that's the relationship between variables. All right. In education, there are tons of theories. The ones that I deal with are very high level, like the relationship between educational attainment and median household income. The research institution, where the place where I work, is an anti-poverty think tank, and so we're always interested in how to improve the lives of North Carolinians. But there may be more specific theories that you all have hold on a day-to-day basis as principals, as administrators, as teachers, and so that's at the very base what theories are. They knit together the results of observations and enabling scientists, and each of us are social scientists, so dub yourself a scientist, to make general statements about variables and the relationships between them. And so theories range from a few simple generalizations to complex formalizations of laws. They not only summarize previous information, but also predict other phenomena by telling you what to expect when other variables interact. And so I'm not sure if you all saw Professor Lightman, the one who has predicted every presidential election for the past 35 years, 40 years. But he has a great example of this. He has a model that when I think it's like 7 or 8 keys, or maybe it's 10, and he says that when these variables interact, either the president's going to get reelected, or they're going to get, or they're going to lose. So that's just a great example of how, when predicting an outcome in the future based on variables interactions. So pretty fascinating model. All right, so why do we have theories? We organize empirical findings and explain phenomena, predict phenomena, and stimulate new research. A theory should be able to explain the observed facts relating to a particular problem. I want you to be thinking about a problem that you see in terms of educational leadership in your district, in your state, in your country. It should be consistent with observed facts and with already established body of knowledge, and it should provide means for its own verification. It should stimulate new discoveries and indicate further areas in need of investigation. All right, so theories help explain behavior and phenomena. A theory could explain why so many non-white students are being suspended. It could be a function of tenure of teacher, location, belief system, leadership, or why extracurricular activities actually assist with time management and lead to higher GPAs. It could be time management as a quantitative variable, focus in college preparation. So I'm going to move quickly into problems and variables. So variables. What is a research problem and why is it so important? Research problems are educational issues, controversies, concerns, the guide, the need for conducting a study. What is the locating the research problem? What is the issue or the problem? What is the controversy that leads to the need for a study? what is the concern being addressed behind the study? And is there a sentence such as the problem being addressed in this study is? And this generally comes in your chapter 1 of your dissertation that sort of frames where your study is going to be going, what it's going to actually address. The research problem is in the opening paragraph, sets the stage for the study, tells the reader why the study is important, and tells the reader why they should read. Your dissertation chair is going to highlight the fact that it's going to highlight the need for a narrative hook, something that's going to hook the reader in the first couple of sentences in your abstract or in your chapter 1. And so your research problem is either going to be very explicitly stated or at least alluded to. So how does a research problem differ from other parts of research? A research topic is the broad subject matter being addressed in the study. A research problem is the educational issue or problem being addressed in the study. A purpose is the major intent or objective of the study. So the purpose, I might have a research problem around internet access. Does internet access have a issue? Does internet access have an impact on final projects in Northampton County? But my intent is to convince, or purpose is to convince the state legislature to invest more money in broadband infrastructure statewide. So that's the difference between intent and the problem. Questions are those that the researcher would like answered or addressed in this study. So distinguishing among the topic, problem, purpose, and research questions. So we start out being very general with the topic. Then we move to the research problem, purpose statement, and then we're very specific with the research question. So we start out with a topic around distance learning. Then the problem is the lack of students enrolled in online classes. The purpose statement then becomes to study why students do not enroll in online classes at a community college and to fix it. And then the research question becomes, does the lack of internet deter students from enrolling in online classes? So for my brilliant people here on a Saturday morning at almost 9:45, what is the independent variable and the dependent variable in that research question? Because generally when you do a research question, you're going to have, in a research question, you should have a an independent variable and a dependent variable.
So
I don't mind trying to be wrong. Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead, Maurice. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Angela.
All right. So I would say that the dependent one would be the internet. Maybe. Or maybe not. And the independent would be the online classes.
So what's having an effect on what?
So the lack of internet is having an effect on the students, whether they enroll in online classes or not.
So the doer, the thing that's doing the doing is always the independent variable. And the thing that's being done to, or the thing that's changing because of the doer variable it's dependent. Okay. So
is it dependent? All right.
Right. So we're
enrollment is dependent.
Can you say that one more?
Yeah, enrollment is in this question, in this scenario, enrollment is dependent on the access to internet. So the idea is that there's somebody who really is interested in online courses, but they live out in the sticks and they recognize, well, I can't get on the internet, so there's no need for me to really be trying to enroll in online classes. So what I'm going to do is just go face to face. And so a community college who's in, let's just use Northampton County because its internet infrastructure is horrible. Their community college may want to study, does a lack, before I invest all this money into distance learning, should I be looking at internet infrastructure as a function of people's choices, and enroll in online classes? Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Sure.
So after watching the video yesterday, what would you use for your sample size so that it's not biased? Would you only pick people that lived in rural areas that lack the internet, or would you make sure that your sample had both?
I'd have both. The larger of a sample size you can have, the larger of a sample size, the better. Now, there's obviously work that's involved with that. Sometimes data cleaning and things, but you'll learn that you get all the data you can get, and then you deal with all the other stuff on the back end. The issue in quantitative and research in general is just getting your hands on the data. It's the rest of it's manageable, but if you can formulate a decent research question, one that your chair and your committee says, okay, this is good. They're going to ask you, questions. How are you going to get this data? How long is it going to take for you to get, and things like that. So, in terms of a sample size, get as much as you can, and that's something that you'll work out in terms of as you're crafting your research plan and model with your committee.
So can you reiterate, because I know I was wrong. So the independent variable in that first example was?
Access or lack of internet.
Okay, very good. So the dependent would be the students?
Will be the enrollment.
In online classes.
Choice, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Munn, can you also repeat your what's having an effect, the thing that's doing and the thing that changes as a result? What was that you said?
Yeah, so the thing that's doing the doing, and this is a really colloquial way of saying, I apologize, but the thing I have a couple of slides that really speak to this, is the independent variable, the thing that's forcing the change. So the clearest example of this is educational attainment and income. Generally speaking, the more education you have, the more money you get paid. So in that instance, the educational attainment is the independent variable having an impact on the dependent variable being what?
Income.
Bingo. So the fact that I went to school, the fact that I had access to go to school and I got these degrees, except for my case, I'm poor. But at any rate, those things have, generally have the impact on income. And in this situation, the fact that Northampton County has a quantifiable and observable lack of internet infrastructure makes the administrators there wonder, does it have an impact on how many students are enrolling in online courses? So thank you for this feedback, because I think maybe this research question is a bit confusing for a first look at the difference, or just explaining that. So let's jump into the second scenario, rural school districts. That's the topic. So when somebody asks you, what's your dissertation on? Oh, it's on rural school districts. And in my situation, I always say out migration. And then so you get varying levels of questions. You'll sometimes get all 4 questions. They'll keep asking you questions until they get to what your research question is. Generally, people ask you what your dissertation was about, and they stop at topic. But then some folk will ask the question, what's the research? What was the issue there? And in this case, it's difficulty keeping nationally board certified teachers. And the purpose in this situation was to uncover the factors that contributed to the exodus of promising and valuable teachers. And so then your research question becomes, what is the relationship between socio-demographic conditions in Warren County and the exodus of teachers? And so socio-demographic conditions are multiple variables. So that's amenities, that's access to internet, that's median household income. Those going to be any number of things. And when we get into modeling, when we get into regression and correlation, we're going to see how numerous variables have relationships with other numerous variables. And we'll see that quantitatively through SPSS. All right. And so with my dissertation, my research problem was, how are we keeping really bright people in rural Eastern North Carolina? You know, and have we overlooked the legacy of the old cotton, the old slave belt in North Carolina, in terms of the legacy of policy, social policy, economic policy. And so my purpose was to illuminate this issue as we talk about policy today. And so my research question is the relationship between socio-economic conditions and out-migration in the 29 Black Belt counties in North Carolina. So I started very, very general and I got specific. All right. Any more questions there? Okay, we'll move on here. Can and should problems be researched? Can you study the problem? Do you have access to the people and sites? You know, I'd love to figure out if there's life on Mars, but do I have access to, do I have readily access to Mars? Do you have the time, resources, and skills to carry out the research? And I think this is critical for those of you trying to get out in 36 months. I think when you're determining what kind of study you want to undertake, it's really important to understand all that you're undertaking. At least in graduate school, when you first get there, you're like, oh, I want to save the world, and this is this really super elaborate, I want to answer all these questions, and here are these elaborate questions that I have. And then about 24 months in, you realize I'm never going to get out of school if I continue to go down that path. So you start to narrow, and your chair and your advisors are going to tell you to narrow, narrow, narrow. There's a dissertation that's your life work. It is a dissertation that gets you out of class, gets you out of your program. And so we're all interested in a quality dissertation, but one that's defensible and gets you out of your program. Second, should you study the problem, and does it advance knowledge? You know, sometimes folk are over general, and they'll come and say, you know, I want to see if there's a relationship between A variable and B variable. That has been asked time and time again and researched time and time again. And so if it doesn't illuminate anything new, or if it doesn't create any new knowledge or advanced knowledge, then it's not something that you should be settling and hanging your hat on. You want to create something new. You want to be the trendsetter in that area, that nuance in education leadership. Does it contribute to practice? All right, can and should problems be researched? I'm pretty sure I misnumbered that one. But will your study fill a gap in the void or existing literature? Will your study replicate a past study but examine different participants and in different research sites? This is a really good one. So a lot of times folk will say, you know, I want to examine a relationship between X and X. And that relationship and that study was done in Kansas, right? I want to see if, you know, this testing software has an impact on third grade reading scores, whatever. And so, you know, but you want to do the same thing in North Carolina, and someone says, oh, that's been done already. Well, the difference between the cultural and the economic differences between Kansas and North Carolina are immense. So actually doing that study in North Carolina or in rural North Carolina versus urban North Carolina make a ton of difference and would would give you would add to the body of knowledge. Will your study extend past research or examine the topic more thoroughly? Sometimes there are seminal studies done in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, and things have changed. We've had internet, we've had a lot of different things change education. And so, yeah, we need to figure out if, we need to see how this theory has changed or how it looks now in 2020 versus.
That's what I'm planning on doing.
Yeah, versus something that happened that was studied in 1940. So yeah, that's incredible. A lot of research that was done prior to 1960 really didn't take into account the perspectives, particularly quality of research of African Americans and other marginalized communities. So it's really so there's a lot of opportunity to continue to delve into that. Oh, but that's the next point. Will your study give voice to people not heard, silenced, or rejected in society? And will your study inform practice? All right, characteristics of a good research problem. The problem is significant. It will contribute to the body of knowledge. The problem is one that will lead to further research. Your research topic should be so dope that people like, man, that was great. I wonder, now I wonder about this. I wonder if that's the case, okay? The research is researchable. It can be investigated through the collection of data. The problem is suitable if it is interesting and suits the researcher's skills, time, and available resources. And is the problem ethical? We talked about that last week. We don't want to cause harms to anybody that we're collecting data from or running analysis on or any of those things. We don't want we want to leave the research site. We want to leave the participants or whatever we're dealing with just the same as it was before we got there. We want to cause no harm. All right, so how research problems differ in quantitative and qualitative research. You use quantitative research if your research problems require you to measure variables, assess the impact of these variables on an outcome, test theories or broad explanations, or apply results to a large number of people. You use qualitative research if your research problem requires you to learn about the views of the people that you plan to study, assess a problem over time, generate theories based on participant perspectives, and obtain detailed information about a few people or research sites. And so qualitative research is great for generating theories. Quantitative is great for testing them. So research questions foreshadow the research. They must accomplish a couple of things. The problem must be a question. The question is about the relationship between variables, and the relationship is capable of empirical testing. Are AIG programs in Vance County related to college success? What factors drive students to attend private specialized HBCUs like Meharry College and other places like that? Narrowing questions. So we want to narrow that. Are AIG programs in Vance County related to collegiate success? Is there a relationship between collegiate success and the amount of funding AIG programs receive? Is there a relationship between the years of teacher experience and college success? And so we may want to have some narrowing questions related to what factors drive students to attend private specialized HBCUs. Is there a relationship between the amounts of marketing dollars spent on recruitment and enrollment? Is there a relationship between the number of STEM majors a school offers and enrollment? So sources for research. Oops, went too far. So experience, intuitions on how things happen, questions, how things are done, theories, and related literature. A study may need replication, future research, and reviews of research in journals. Population. So populations are those people about whom you wish to learn something. Who is the population in the AIG collegiate success scenario, or who's the population in the private HBCU scenario? You might want to think about who the population is in your proposed study. A sample is a subgroup of the target population that the researcher plans to study for the purpose of making generalizations about the target population. And samples are only estimates. That's why you always have, when folk run models on elections, there's always the MOE, the margin of error. So because the sample is not representative of the entire voting population. The difference between sample estimates and the true population is the sampling error. All right, so we're going to get into one of the most important pieces of research, of quantitative research and statistics, and that's the being able to determine what is an independent variable and what is a dependent variable. And so a variable is something simply that varies. Specifically, variables represent persons or objects that can be manipulated, controlled, or merely measured for the sake of research. And the variation is how much a variable varies. Those with little variation are called constants. So we have two different kinds of variables. The independent variable is the variable that's expected to account for the cause of the dependent variable, and the dependent variable is the variable to be explained or the effect. Does that make sense? Great. If X, then Y. The independent variable is the presumed causal variable in a relationship, and the dependent variable is the presumed effect variable. The more racial bias a teacher exhibits, the lower the students of color score on the EOGs. Types of variables. Independent is a variable hypothesized, a cause, explained. I'm going over this time so that it sticks. I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but I want plenty of evidence or plenty of content here so that it definitely sticks. The independent is a variable hypothesized to cause or explain variation in another variable. It's the variable from which predictions are made. It is the presumed cause of the dependent variable. Example, age, landholding, income are independent variables in this instance. The dependent variable is a condition which the researcher tries to explain. The dependent variable is the consequence. Also is the variable hypothesized to vary depending on the influence of another variable. It is the variable that's being measured, time and extent of adoption and attitude towards new farm practices. Those are the dependent variables relative to these independent variables. All right, so the dependent variable is always the property you are trying to explain. It is always the object of your research. The independent variable usually occurs in time, earlier in time than the dependent variable, and the independent variable is often seen as influencing or directly or indirectly influencing the dependent variable. All right, so we might want to say there is a relationship between parental level of education and academic performance, right? So which is the independent variable and which is the dependent variable?
Parent level of education's independent.
Right. It's having an effect on what?
Academic performance.
Absolutely. All right. Could these also be independent variables?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. So if we were going to see which of these, if we were able to quantify all of these in a data set and in a certain model, in a certain place, we would likely use something like multiple regression to see how much of an impact parental level of education has relative to socioeconomic status, relative to learning style, and the rest of the variables in this model, and what kind of impact they have on academic performance. And that's what you would call a beta coefficient. We'll get to that much later. That'll be near the end of the course. But as you can imagine, all of these probably have a little bit of the piece as to the outcome here, the outcome variable being the dependent variable. And so there are statistical applications which we will deal with that will be able to give us some sort of a prediction, which is incredibly important in the work that we do. Here's some terminology as you're reading literature around your dissertation. You're going to come across qualitative literature and quantitative research. And it's not going to always come out in the literature and say, the independent variable is this. Sometimes they're going to use terminology like the explanatory or the predictor, stimulus, covariate, control. Those are all synonyms for independent variable. Your dependent variable, they are referred to as the explain, the predicand, response, outcome, and the controlled. Okay, so those are all variants of the of each of these main terms. Okay, activity. So let's identify the independent variables. And the only way this is going to stick is if we practice it. So we're going to be doing a lot of practice today. All right. So students of different ages were given the same jigsaw puzzle to put together. They were timed to see how long it took to finish the puzzle. What is the independent variable? Oh.
The time.
I was thinking the puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
The different ages.
That's right. Yeah, I gave it away. That's what happens when you don't practice your slides the night before. Yeah, I gave it away. It's the age. In this instance, it's the age. But there could be some other other variables, and so I'm going to leave.
So it's not the
puzzle doesn't change though.
It's not the puzzle because you're thinking about it's supposed to be the time that it takes to complete the puzzle, which becomes a dependent variable. So it's the time to complete that.
Time to complete.
That was also a question for me, right? That is correct, right?
Yeah, the time to complete the puzzle is the
dependent on the age of the children.
Dependent on the age of the child, right?
I'm getting it now.
Yep.
I really like this analogy. That's helpful to me.
Yep. And this will all be online, both both in PDF slides as well as this video. So you'll be able to see your light bulb go off again. Cool. The time was observed. So scientists. So hypotheses are, so can someone give me the world's most basic definition of a hypothesis?
Chicken or the egg?
All right. So, I think we all learned, the hypothesis in school. I know I was beat over the head. It was an educated guess. And while that's not wrong.
Oh.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And while
eggs.
Oh, no, it's fine. I love this picture. But an educated guess isn't wrong, but it is a statement of expectation in research. So that's probably a better way of classifying what a hypothesis is. And so it's what we expect to happen. So I'm going to give us a scenario here, and this should resonate with each of you who are educational leaders here. given the fact, and we have variables here, two variables here, and I help and bear with me because I'm thinking I'm making this up as we go. And you don't have to answer if you don't want. But given the fact that we have a patchwork policy as it relates to going back to school from district to district, what is your statement of expectation in terms of school continuity, school year continuity, given all of the variation? So I'm gonna stop there and say patchwork, patchwork school policy is your independent variable. I'm assuming it's going to have an impact on continuity, how we make it through this year. What is your statement? What will be a statement of expectation there? No wrong answers. Just throw them out. We're going to work through it all together because I literally just made that up.
Repeat the question again.
Yeah, can you please repeat it?
Sure. So the governor came and left up, I'm going to give a little bit of context here. The governor came on how many weeks ago? Was it 4 weeks ago? And said that the decision for school districts to return is basically on them. You can choose between a hybrid model or a remote model. And so there are a lot of people who think that because there are going to be some schools that go back to school face-to-face and some that don't, that it's not going to really mitigate the spread of the virus. So what is your expectation given that schools don't have this even, or school systems don't have, or the state doesn't have an even response to COVID-19? What do you predict is going to happen in terms of a continuity of the school year? Either, and your choices could be, we're gonna be just fine. We're gonna be able to go through the school year just fine. Or you could think that it's going to shorten it. But yeah, so I'm gonna stop there. I don't want to force the issue. I probably could come up with a better.
I predict that throughout the state, districts will all be on varying schedules and we will not be able to have statewide assessments.
And I guess
that's a great hypothesis.
Also piggybacking on what Tanya said, students who have more accessibility to maybe the synchronous instruction are going to have more success, and the achievement gaps may grow for other families who do not have as much accessibility to synchronous instruction. And it will vary from district to district, those who are going hybrid versus completely remote.
Can you all drop those in chat? Those are really good. Those are really good. So Mr. Hernandez, you just identified two really good variables. One, access to internet, and two, student outcomes. You also recognize that as a policy issue, that could exacerbate gaps that are longstanding. As well as is it Ms. Higgins?
Yes.
Stupid. Okay, there it is. Yeah, my mouse isn't highlighting. What you're saying is that folk won't arrive. The confusion or the lack of a clear
statewide schedule,
right, is going to lead to issues down the line here. And we could probably, in terms of a research question, clean that up so that it's a little more, but I get the cause and the effect. Cause and effect, cause being and then the effect being the dependent variable. So we'll move on from this screen because I do not remember. Oh yeah. Okay, so we're saying here as a hypothesis, the expectation here is that for these poor eggs, if the temperature of the water is higher, then the egg will boil faster. All right. So that's what happened there. The independent variable is the temperature of the water. The dependent variable is the time to cook an egg. And we will take a 5 to 10 minute break at 10:30. I normally do that. So let's identify the independent and dependent variables here. I don't like this example here, so I'm going to move on here. All right. What brand of cereal contains the most sugar?
Frosted Flakes.
Yes. And it happens to be my favorite with bananas. I mean, that is the highlight of life.
The highlight of life.
Yes. I'm very simple. I'm not hard to please. That makes me very happy. So the brand of sugar, brand of cereal determines in this situation the amount of sugar. And as you said, the brand, you nailed it. If we're talking about grape nuts, that has a determination of whether or not how much sugar there is in that cereal. If we're talking about Honey Nut Cheerios, they may have another varying level of sugar. So you can imagine where you could get a spreadsheet and you could have brand of cereal in one column, okay? And then you could have amount of sugar in the other column, and you can go down the box label and you can say, okay, this is how many milligrams of sugars in this one, and you can start to see the variation, you understand? And so the brand of sugar is going to clearly have an impact on how much sugar is actually in there, brand of cereal, okay? What type of bubble gum makes the biggest bubbles? Type of bubble.
Bubba.
Type of bubble gum has an impact. Bubblicious, right? Versus Wrigley, or the Spearmint, which is going to have much smaller bubbles. I know these are, don't seem to be very interesting, but yeah, there's a relationship. And so the type of bubble gum, obviously you get more bubbles, more bubble gum with the Bubblicious and the Hubba Bubba and all the other ones than you would from this regular, breath freshening gum. What type of toothpaste makes the teeth the whitest?
That new it's coming a white tube that people selling for $24. It's an independent company.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
Arm & Hammer, not the one you're talking about, but Arm & Hammer with peroxide or something. $24. I need to buy that.
Yo, we are trying to understand the independent and the dependent variables, Tanya and Tina.
What? He asked the question. He said,
okay, I'm gonna focus, Maurice. Thank you for that. Yes.
I've offered a lot to this discussion. Don't make fun of me for toothpaste.
The type of toothpaste.
Crest whitening. Crest 3D whitening.
Oh, okay.
We're supposed to say which is the dependent.
And so the type of toothpaste has an impact on.
I'm sorry, Maurice. I'm so tired.
But we all are.
I'm so sorry.
A heck of a
I'm gonna mute now. Okay, I'm just gonna mute. All right.
It's cool. It's cool. So, what type of dishwashing soap makes the biggest bubbles? The type of dishwashing soap and the size of the bubbles. Size of the bubbles being dependent on the type of dishwashing soap that we're using here. Ajax versus Palmolive. That's what's being impacted here. All right, what grade of middle school students can jump the highest? All right, I'm not gonna preview this one. Which is the dependent variable and which one's the independent variable?
Grade is independent.
Yes.
And the height of the jump is dependent.
Bingo.
And anyone that works with middle schoolers know it's 7th grade.
What? So tell me, give me the rationale. Why is it 8?
7th graders are just crazy kids.
Being a
Trying
7th
to
grade
go
teacher.
high.
Yes, I agree.
7th grade is. Woo.
So does nitrogen-based fertilizer help crops grow taller? Type of fertilizer and growth outcomes for the crops. What effect do coloring pencils have on the quality of education, elementary school student artwork? Okay. So the type of art supply and the quality of student artwork. Is there a relationship, I'm gonna let you all do this one, between the presence of computers in the media center and better book reports?
Presence of the computers is independent. Quality of book reports is the dependent.
Yes.
Boom.
See, Maurice?
Good
I'm
job.
still
Yeah, you got it.
And now I'm gonna have whiter teeth too.
All right, I'm gonna let this one ride. Here, I'm throwing this one out to the class. The more rest students get at night, the more engaged they are in classroom activities.
Time of rest and engagement.
Mm-hmm. Amount of rest and level of engagement. Boom. All right, we're gonna skip this one. Now we're gonna get into a part that's a little more, in my experience, trips folk up, but it's very important as we get into statistical application here. And so there are types of variables, categorical and continuous. And so that oftentimes determines whether or not you're going to use a t-test versus a ANOVA model. And so the type of variable, this is really important, and it's again why I'm going over it before we get into the modeling. All right, a variable is a construct or a characteristic that can take on different values of scores. As we've just gone over independent and dependent, but the classification of variables are either categorical or continuous. Quantitative, as I said, quantitative variables can be classified as categorical, continuous. The classification of variables used in your study will determine the type of statistical application you use to answer your research question and test your hypotheses. So categorical variables are assigned by the researcher into a small number of categories. These should be mutually exclusive and exhaustive, i.e. nominal or ordinal. Here's another definition. When the variations of the variable are associated with specific categories, the simplest types are dichotomous variables, which have only the two mutually exclusive groups. Generally speaking, male, female, pass, fail, citizen, or alien. Here are some categorical variables. Not my favorite, but leadership style. This is a categorical variable. You could be classified as a statesman principle, a task-oriented principle, a social principle, or a passive one. Those could be your leadership styles, your locus of control, internal or external. That will be qualified as a dichotomous variable. Learning style, you're either visual or verbal. Continuous variables, on the other hand, are assigned by the researcher to point along a continuum of scores from low to high, i.e. age, interval and ratio variables are called continuous variables. Another definition, variables that vary by magnitude along an ordered continuum: height, weight, age, and achievement test scores. Age, the larger the number, the older the individual. Class size, the larger the number, the larger the class. Salary, the larger the number, the higher the salary. Poverty rate, the higher the percentage, the more people. Yeah, sure. Who's that?
In SPSS, are these this is Maurice.
Yeah.
In the SPSS, are these the scalar variables?
Scale variables. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Okay. So this is how you always are able to determine a categorical variable from a continuous variable. Can a variable be more of this? So when we're talking about, we're talking about a classic categorical variable such as color. Okay. So we're talking about how many red cars are in a parking lot, how many black cars, how many green cars, blue cars. You can't be more blue. You can't be more red. Or if your eye color, we're talking about eye color, your eyes can't be more gray. You know, if we're talking about grade level, you can't be more sophomore. You can't be more freshman. If we're talking about marital status, you can't be more married, divorced, single. I know there may be some.
I couldn't be more divorced. No, I'm just kidding. That just made me laugh. Just
Right.
kidding, just kidding.
But in terms of continuous variables, you can make more money. You can have a higher salary. You can gain weight or lose weight. It can be hotter and colder, right? Those things that can be more or less of something are generally speaking, continuous. Okay, so we're gonna go through these real quickly. Is this a categorical variable or continuous variable?
Categorical?
Absolutely. I actually have a Great Dane. You've probably heard her numerous times wolfing it out there. She terrorizes the squirrels in the backyard, but she can't be more Great Dane or more German Shepherd. She's just a Great Dane. Is this categorical or continuous?
Categorical.
Categorical, absolutely.
Okay, let's go back. Can we go back to that? I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Why can't it be more red if I add more dye? There are different variants of colors, if I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. In this instance, when we're putting, I know what you're asking, but in this instance, when we're putting it into a model, it is either red, green, blue, or orange, and
Okay.
there's just no, it wouldn't be any variation. You would put those things in different categories. But I know what you're saying. So if you're wanting to, sort of examine the level of red, then that would be a whole different kind of examination versus how many folk drove green cars and how many. And this is how we get into frequencies. If you were to go out into a parking lot and just record, you go to Cross Creek Mall and just want to record how many red, green, blue cars there are and put them into a spreadsheet, then you can figure out how many red cars, blue cars, and that would give you a percentage. And it's pretty helpful when you're doing your first round of analysis in any kind of a study. Okay. Population of a city, categorical or continuous?
Continuous.
Absolutely.
Continuous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gender.
Categorical.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
It's
categorical.
even if we throw in, the non-binary, there's still very distinct categories there. Right? You good? All right. Salary.
Continuous.
Absolutely. 100%. Eye color.
Categorical.
Absolutely. Winning score.
Categorical. No, continuous. If it's a rate, well.
Yep. If it's a basketball score, 97 to 98, it would absolutely be continuous. Whether you won or lost or won or losses, like, in a column, then that would be categorical. EOG scores.
Continuous.
Yeah.
Well, or they're
It's-
categorical
so-
for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It could be both then. It depends on what the scores, absolutely.
Or proficient and non-proficient. Proficient is continuous because you can be advanced. You can be proficient and then advanced too. So, I don't know.
So if we're talking about proficient and non-proficient, what are those? What are
Categorical.
those? Absolute, yes. Those are very clear categories. And so that is categorical. Now, I'm not expert, so I don't know. Are EOG scores numbers?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then that will be interval data. There's no true zero. Because as we'll get into the further classification of categorical and continuous, there's nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio data. And so ratio, interval data are types of continuous data, and nominal and ordinal are types of categorical. So EOG scores always, every year, I always get that kind of and then wait a minute, so that's normal. Because if you're saying proficient and non-proficient, two clear categories, those are dichotomous, one or the other. And then if you're talking about anything from 1 to 7 or something like that, then we're talking about continuous. So very good, good catch. Teacher satisfaction index.
Continuous.
Depends. It depends. So if we're talking about something, an index that says that is numerical in nature, so 1 to 100, then absolutely continuous. But if we're saying, something like satisfied and not satisfied, then that would be what?
Categorical.
Categorical.
Well, I was thinking of the teacher working condition surveys continuous. It's not always a yes or no. It's a
right. So you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. All right. Principal leadership style.
Continuous. No. Categorical.
Categorical. Because you remember those things I showed you before, locus, statesman, and so those are very clear categories. They can't be one or the other. More of one. Socioeconomic status. And whatever it is, I want you to tell me why.
Continuous.
Continuous. Okay. Why?
Because it could change. They may be in poverty today, and tomorrow they may not be. It could change.
Or the categorical.
They can get a new job and get a better income and no longer in poverty.
It depends on how you measure it.
You have to figure out how you measure it. If you're going to measure it by
certain
salary or income, then you've got continuous. If you're going to measure it by something else, then it might be categorical.
But if it could change, it's a categorical can't be more of.
But socioeconomic status is very broad, so you have to figure out what that means, because it means a lot of different things go into determine a socioeconomic status.
So if I'm looking at socioeconomic status by if they have a certain standard for middle income and a certain level for poverty, that would make it more categorical?
That would make it categorical. And let me tell you, in most cases, this is going to be categorical. because what people generally do is create low, medium, high income levels. And they say if you make from 0 to 20,000, you're in low, and if you make 35,000, then you're low, moderate. So generally speaking, it's going to always be categorical. But if you're just saying, if you're measuring it strictly quantitatively, and you're strictly just saying socioeconomic status is based on your income and nothing else, and you're not putting them into categories, then that will be continuous if you're just looking at salary. But 9 times out of 10, generally speaking, whatever kind of measure people are using is going to be categorical. They're going to put them in categories of, impoverished or low, moderate, or medium, or high, or in quintiles. Generally speaking, the census uses quintiles. So, making, who falls into the, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, quintiles. And that's categorical. But you all are thinking, so thank you for thinking through that. That's exactly what I want you to do. Entrance exam score.
Dr. Munn, I will just impart within you that it is 10:37, and you.
I got excited. Forgive me. Let's get through this exercise, and then we're going to go on our break. All right. Entrance exam score.
Continuous.
Okay.
Well,
or
what if it's pass or fail?
That's what I was about to say. I was thinking categorical because with most schools, they say you must have a minimum of
threshold. Yeah.
So if you're putting it into categories, it's what? If it's pass fail, it's categorical, right? But if it's 1 to 120, then what is it?
Continuous.
Right. Time spent studying?
Continuous.
Absolutely.
Continuous.
All the time. Educational attainment of teachers.
Continuous. Oh.
Categorical.
Depends. It depends on how it is. So you could have college educated, you could have master's degree, you could have doctoral. What's that going to be?
Categorical.
Categories. But if we're doing them by years of school, then what would that be?
Continuous.
Absolutely. All right. Let's go on our 5-minute. Let's come back here at 10:48. Look forward to getting through this. How is it so far?
Oh, that's 10 minutes. This is good. I
This
really
is
enjoy
really
how you
helpful.
break down things. Yeah.
Good.
Cool. All right.
The examples are really helpful.
Awesome. See you at 10:48. All right. We're going to get started. That's pretty dope. I did that wrong again. Play from window. There we go. Cool. All right, cool. So we're going to get started. Everyone hear me all right? All right. So just to rehash again, research questions narrow the research problem to specific questions to answer. Sorry, fly over here. That they inquire about the relationships among variables that an investigator seeks to know. For an example, excuse me, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm just really distracting. Yeah. Okay. So, for an example, do parent-teacher, teacher-parent internet communications affect student performance in the classroom? So I wrote this 2 years ago, and it seems that this is really incredibly relevant question to ask now. Yeah. What are the independent and dependent variables in that question?
Student performance is affected by parent-teacher internet communication.
Who did that? Man, hey.
Take me out, Maurice.
That's what I'm talking about, because that's the way to think of it. Yeah, to think of it like, what is? Yeah, that's it. That's absolutely right. Absolutely. And generally, I use red as the independent, having an effect on the dependent. Thank you for that. Does testing of teachers improve teaching?
Oh.
No.
I mean, I think it depends upon the teacher.
Oh, this is the, I think I'm asking, oh, these are just other examples. I'm tripping. They didn't like go in order, so I apologize. So in this situation, does testing of teachers improve teaching? Testing of teachers has an impact, or is as a hypothesized impact on improvement of teachers. Do gender segregated classrooms have an impact on what? School learning. Do the students in charter schools have a higher academic achievement? Type of school having an impact on academic achievement. Higher is just a directional term. And does assigning homework improve student achievement? What's the independent there?
Assigning homework.
Homework, right. Improvement and student achievement is what's being affected. Okay, hypotheses. Reasons to state hypothesis, a hypothesis before gathering data. I've been dealing with this for 600 years. It would seem that I could say the word hypothesis without getting tripped up. So a well-grounded hypothesis indicates the researcher has sufficient knowledge to undertake investigation, gives direction to the collection and interpretation of data. And here are a couple examples. People who make less money will attend church more often than those who make more who make more money. What is the core thought process there? What's behind that hypothesis that drives that?
I'm waiting for you to tell me. I've never heard that before.
Oh, yeah, no.
People with less money feel that their faith will help them advance socioeconomically, and people with more money feel that the religious organization wants their money.
Bingo. That's what I've heard. I am a man of faith, so I don't necessarily subscribe to it, but that is the thought process. But an independent variable here is level of income, and the dependent variable here is church attendance. And values of attribute for both are more and less, more income, more or less church attendance. Now, let me ask you a question. What kind of variable is income? Categorical.
Independence.
Well, yeah. Yes.
Continuous.
Categorical continuous. Bingo.
Oh.
Now, could church attendance be categorical or continuous?
I think categorical.
Yes.
Well,
So it will be categorical if you would say something like 1 time a week, 2 time a week, 3 time a week. You would just go into those categories. But if you just do how many times did you attend church in a year,
or hours,
upwards of whatever, then it would be
Yep. Bingo.
I totally missed all of that. My computer froze and it logged me out. I missed it.
I'm about to hand the mic over to Maurice. He holding it down here.
Yeah,
All right. So I asked the question, could church attendance be both categorical, could be either or? And sometimes you'll be able to look at a variable and you'll have a little bit of wiggle room and you can categorize it in different ways. And that's helpful for if you want to use a model that requires 2 continuous variables or a model that requires a continuous or a categorical variable. So my question was, again, was church attendance, could it be categorical or continuous? And the answer is yes. If you look at church attendance as how many times a week do you go, 1, 2, 3, and then you put it into a category, and you could actually simplify it even more. If you could say, you could gather the data and ask each respondent how many times you go a week, and they say 1, 2, and 3, and then you as a researcher say a lot for 1, 2, for more than 4, and then a few times for like 1 or 2. You see what I'm saying? So you can turn a variable into a categorical variable. You can also ask them how many hours a week do you go to the church. And if you ask them that, then you're going to get a what kind of variable? You're going to get a continuous.
Cynthia, he was talking to you.
Oh, no, I was just throwing it out there. I was throwing it out there to the group. Yeah, this is anyone can answer at any time. Yeah. So that's that. So there are different kinds of hypotheses. You in the context of this class and in this program are going to be dealing with research hypotheses. They state the results you expect to find as a result of the research and maybe statements about the expected relationship or difference. They are hypotheses derived from observation and the related literature and or theory described in the study. And they are directional and they're also non-directional. I'll be giving you some examples of that. So here is a directional impact hypothesis. States the direction or nature of the expected relationship or difference. Here's an example. Fifth grade girls will have higher scores on the California achievement test than 5th grade boys. What's the direction there? What makes that directional?
Higher.
Bingo. The greater the age, the higher the score on the leadership diversity scale. Where is the direction there?
Higher.
And what else?
Greater age and higher score.
And higher?
Bingo. Yeah, greater
100. 100. Non-directional hypotheses. States the relationship exists, but does not specify the direction or nature of expected relationship. There'll be a difference in test scores on XYZ achievement tests for 5th grade girls, 5th grade boys and girls. And that's there are, sometimes researchers can be a bit cagey about what they expect. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to throw themselves out there. You can do this. This is cool. There will be
Dr. Kanuka said typically, and maybe he said so much like in our social science realm, is that we typically do, these are called null hypotheses, right?
Yeah,
so we usually do like there's no effect. So then you just figure out what it is and then you write that up.
Yep, that's
So
coming.
null and non-directional are the same thing?
No.
It seems like null is nothing, but not like there is no.
Mm-hmm.
And non-directional
But
means
non-directional means
there
there
is an effect.
is, but we just aren't going to say if it's
We're not
positive
gonna
or
say which
negative
one
or
it
higher
is.
or lower.
Okay.
Bingo. Yeah, and null hypotheses are they're interesting. We're going to be getting into that into just a second. I'm glad. So he covered that as well. Okay, this is the next slide. The statistical hypothesis states that there's no relationship or difference between the variables. It is negation of what the researcher expects. There will be no significant difference in test scores between fifth grade boys and girls on a California achievement test. And so the kind of statistical test we use here is a t-test. We would want to know, we have two very specified groups, and we want to see, we may have the average score for girls maybe 97.5, the average score for boys maybe 94.3, but you just can't come out there and say, oh, well, that's the difference. You have to get a statistically significant difference. And that's why you have to run a t-test or a model to verify that that difference that you see visually actually is statistically significant. Okay. And another version of a null hypothesis is there will be no association or relationship between the age of the leader and amount of leadership succession planning. I like using the language consistently, just saying there'll be no significant difference, or there's no relationship, just being clear. But yes, that is generally what we use. I used a directional hypothesis in my dissertation because I expected there to be a relationship, and there was, of course. But just for the terms, it's really easy to learn statistics using null hypothesis. It's just really clear. And when you fail to reject a hypothesis, it makes the theory stronger. All right. If you reject the null hypothesis, then it makes it the opposite is true. Obviously, it means that what you expected, or there is no relationship between eating candy and gaining weight, or there is a relationship. So that can get very confusing. Let me get into an example of that, because that is really hard to explain without an example. And we will get to that fairly quickly once we get into out of descriptive statistics and into inferential statistics. So all alternate hypotheses are the alternate to the null and specifies the relationship or ways in which a population mean can vary. Children taught by individual instruction will exhibit less mastery of mathematical concepts than those taught by group instruction. So that's the alternate hypothesis. When we get into inferential statistics, I will probably do another just quick review, maybe 5-10 minute review of all of this, so that it's fresh before we go into application.
Before you move on, I don't understand the difference between alternate hypothesis and directional hypothesis.
There isn't much. It's really just a flip. It's the opposite of a null hypothesis. There's not much difference. I wouldn't even worry about it.
All right.
I wouldn't even. It is there just so that if it comes up in the literature, that you're aware of it. Okay. Okay. Here's a biggie: scales of measurement. This is very important. So we went over categorical and continuous variables. They both have two different categories themselves. Nominal data and ordinal data represent categorical variables. So interval data represent, interval and ratio data represent continuous data. And so for nominal data, those are categories, but they have no distinct order. Okay, so we're talking about things like eye color, race, religious affiliation. There's no order. Those are different categories, very distinct categories, but no order. Ordinal data have very distinct categories and they're ordered. So first, second, third, fourth place. How are you feeling today? You can go from worst to best, things like that. Quarterback or sports positions, that's nominal data. Ordinal data are very ordered pieces. Interval data, equal distance intervals between points. There's no true meaningful zero or starting point. The best definition I have for this is temperature. There's no true zero. If it is 0 degrees outside, does that mean there's no temperature? No, it doesn't mean that. It's just an arbitrary measurement or a place where we start, where we try to measure something, such as years. Calendars are another great example. When we get to the year 0 on the AD calendar, that didn't mean there wasn't any years or there wasn't any time. It just is an arbitrary piece there. IQ test is another great example. We created a 0 there, but if you get a 0 on the IQ test, or that doesn't mean there's no intelligence there. Or if you get a 0 on an exam, that doesn't mean that you don't have any knowledge. It just means that is the arbitrary measure that we have there. However, with ratio, there is a true 0, meaningful 0. If you get on the scale and it says 0, there's a problem there. But you can actually, 0 pounds means no weight, or 0 inches tall means there's no height there. And someone handed you a contract for 12 months of employment and had $0, that means you're not going to get you're working for free. Pretty sure that that's not legal, but you get the point. There is a meaningful 0. The 0 means something in that situation. So here's some examples of nominal data, marital status. Again, these are things that don't have any distinct order. Now, some folk may feel like, they may in their mind or heart of hearts, they may think the marital status should go in a certain order, but there's really no order to that. Or if we're talking about a line of data, a line of students, or a line of principals, or just a column of all these folk in a data set, and we have birthplaces beside each of their names, along with their social security numbers or whatever, we're not going to assign order to birthplace. We're not going to assign order to color of hair. If they all played on the football team, we don't really assign order to that position. Now, we may personally feel that the quarterback is the most important position there, but there's no real order there. There's no order to the gender, no order to race and ethnicity, or to religious affiliation. So a lot of times we'll see nominal data in terms of marital status, married and not married, birthplace, looks like this, color of hair looks like that, position on a football team looks like that, gender, which is a dichotomous variable. Can anyone tell me what a dichotomous variable is?
2
categories.
One or the other, that's right. Test score can be dichotomous, pass or fail. Race can be dichotomous, white or non-white, religious affiliation, Catholic, Protestant. There's no order here, okay? And so I've attempted to simulate what it would look like in a data set. So we have all these students here, and we want to know, whether they are white or black. And so, as I said before, when you're entering this into SPSS, and this is the coding thing, a little bit of the coding we're talking about, you would assign, you would go to your variable view and go through that process of assigning a code to the actual variable label. And so you would assign 1 non-white and 0 for white. And so I would probably do, in hindsight, 1 for white and 2 for non-white. So it would give me a better outcome there if I want to do other statistical application. But you get the point. You can you can turn words into numbers this way. Ordinal. Order or distinct categories. So job satisfaction, condition of health, marital happiness, social class, place in a context, academic degrees, and occupational status. So job satisfaction. So we start at the very top, or you can flip it around. Not at all satisfied, slightly dissatisfied, neutral, a little satisfied, and very satisfied. And then when we're talking about skills in the situation, it would be something considered as a Likert scale. Condition of health, very unwell, slightly unwell, neutral, slightly well, completely well. And you guys can sort of see this, how this would look on a survey, right? Marital happiness, unhappy, neutral, happy. Or as I like to say, just married. Social class, wealthy, middle class, working class, poor. Okay. Place in contest, first, second, third, and fourth. Academic degrees. We are this is a ordered category. Don't care what anyone tells you. We rank it from, from high school generally, or less than high school. Certainly does that in the census. And then we move all the way up to terminal degrees, JD, MD, PhD, EDD, and so forth. Occupational status: retired, unemployed, underemployed, employed. Sometimes they don't have underemployed as a part of that, but there it is. So how do you feel today? I feel pretty okay. Actually, I'm pretty. I would say I'm 4 today. But we have coded gender. 1 is for female, 0 is for male, and level of happiness. As you can see here, we have categorized it in its order. And so we have 2. So Kenya is unhappy today. Tanya is happy. But you see how these are all categorized. And you can imagine if you had 1,000, 2,000 entries here, and you were trying to determine, is there a relationship between gender and level of happiness, how those numbers can help you be able to quantify that and see if there's a relationship. Okay. Interval. This is continuous. We're moving into continuous scales of measurement. Equal distance intervals between points and units on a scale, but with no true meaningful 0 or starting point. 0 simply represents an additional point of measure and not a starting point. For example, tests in schools are interval levels of student knowledge. If you score a 0 on a math test, it does not mean you have no knowledge. But the difference between 65 and 66 on a test is measurable and equal to the difference between 93 and 94. On the contrary, a ratio variable 0 means the complete absence of that specified variable. So if I've got 0 money in my bank account, I cannot go out there and buy a car. I just have no money. I can argue that it's an arbitrary point, but I'm not going to get very far. So another example is temperature. Fahrenheit is the interval level of measurement of temperature. Differences are the same and measurable across the scale. So if it is 32 degrees and someone says, well, it's 10 degrees warmer in Rayford, then I'm going to say that's 42 degrees. If I say, well, man, it's a big difference between Rayford and Greensboro, it's 10 degrees cooler in Greensboro, you're going to say it's 22 degrees. But the 0 in Fahrenheit is arbitrary, and since 0 doesn't mean there's no temperature. Further, 0 degrees in Fahrenheit and 0 degrees in Celsius are different temperatures, and neither indicates the absence of any temperature. However, ratio measures like 0 meters or 0 feet mean exactly the same thing. There's no height there. And so this is just a visualization of the boiling point, hot weather. I believe it was 24 degrees Celsius and 25 degrees Celsius in England, and they were flipping out because folk were passing out on the beach in England. But 10 degrees Celsius and 50 degrees is considered chilly or fall-like weather. And 0 degrees Celsius and 32 degrees Fahrenheit are the freezing point. So we can kind of see how 0 in these instances are arbitrary. Another example, when we hit the year 1 in the Gregorian AD calendar, it was the year 4750 in the Syrian calendar, 3761 in Hebrew, 2696 and Chinese, and the Islamic calendar hadn't even been created. When I did this, re-up this slide in 2019, the Islamic calendar was 1441, Chinese 4715. So we see that there's no real true 0 here. They're all arbitrary across these examples. So here are some interval examples that we may be more familiar with: temperature, year, standardized test score, IQ, and GPA. SAT score 400 to 1600. I think that's the same model. I'm not sure. IQ is 0 to 160. GPA is 0 to 4.0. And there's some other scales and other ways of calculating that. So A is 4.0, B 3.0, C 2, D 1, and F is 0. And so we have some really famous freshman students here. Here is their gender. Here is their first and second semester GPA. So I want to bring everybody back here. What relationship could we argue exists here? Or if we had 10,000 more of these rows with 10,000 more entries, what would we start to wonder? What could we start to measure here? Or what could we start to examine in terms of a relationship? What question?
Can we examine the first semester compared to the second semester in terms of them being freshmen in college? Did they do better their first semester than their second semester, maybe?
Definitely. That's a great research question. There's probably 2 more research questions. Is there a relationship between gender and anything?
GPA. The first semester GPA for the females look a little higher than the males.
So we could ask the question, is there a relationship between gender and GPA in the first semester or in the second semester, or any of those things? So those are the kinds of things that we're going to be asking questions around. and then actually modeling with the data sets that I provided everyone. Make sense? Okay, ratio. Personally, I'm a fan of ratio variables. They're straightforward, and they allow you to do the most with regard to statistical testing. So ratio, equal distance intervals between units with a true and meaningful zero, age, level of education in years. I should put that there. Height, weight, income, and distance. Age, 0 to 101, level of education, 0 to 28 plus. Height, you can be as tall as you want. Income, you can make as much money as you'd like, 0. So did that make sense? I kind of flew through that. So you have level of education, which is, almost infinite. Height, which can be almost infinite. But if it's 0, there's just no height there. There's no money in your bank account, then that's 0. If there's $250,000 coming in every other month, then that's your income. And there can be more or less of that thing. So Aramark Food Satisfaction Survey. Anybody go to undergrad here at Fayetteville State? All right, I see, all right, cool. So how much did, I certainly, I was a commuter student, so I didn't start living on campus until later on. But let's talk about first year weight samples. And so this is just, let's just say someone decided to track folks' weight their first year, second year, third year, and fourth year. And yeah, so that's that. So I'm going to do a quick question here. Who's Belcalis Al-Nazar? Anybody know who that is? Cool. So that's Cardi B. That's Cardi B's real name. I was just throwing that out there. Anyway, so what relationships could you sort of derive here? What questions pop up here just by looking at these rows of data?
Maybe gender versus weight over time, weight gain or what's the opposite of gain? Whatever the opposite of gain is, maybe.
Boss?
For me, I was looking at, and maybe I'm being too, it looked like the guys lost weight by their fourth year in the, it's Aubrey is a female, right?
Aubrey is Drake.
Yeah, she gained weight, but almost majority of the males lost weight.
Yeah, well, I think, naturally what we want to see is there a relationship, between, is there a statistically significant relationship between gender and, weight loss or gain over time? Exactly as was said earlier. But yeah, this is a perfect example of how we have two continuous variables, gender being the first continuous variable because we converted it over here and from a categorical variable and made it and we've made it a quantifiable variable here. And so now SPSS can determine, is there a relation? It'll tell us, especially if there's 10,000, because you have 10,000 or 2,000 or 300 cases, you can't visually look at each number and say, I wonder, you have to rely on the modeling to tell you if there's a relationship between gender and weight loss or weight gain. So there's definitely ways to do that. Just wanted to show you.
Quick question. So looking at this, the genders, are we to assume that there will be many more women showing up in this study? Because right now it just looks top heavy.
Sure, especially for and you're going to see that where in college you're going to see that you're going to see more women in the model. So what you're going to have to do is weight it if you want to even it out balance. You're going to have to weight men more heavily so that it'll balance out and give you the outcome that you want. So that's a very good observation. And they do that a lot of times when, in my background in politics, they do it a lot of times when we make phone calls, in certain areas, if there's a high number of young folk in this precinct or area that we're doing telephone polling, they have to account for that. They have to control for that, or you're going to get numbers, you're going to get outcomes that are going to be incorrect. So understanding that generally, particularly at HBCUs, there are more women than men, you're going to have to make an acknowledgement for that. Yeah, big go. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that out. Okay. Categorical or continuous? What scale of measurement? The more self-efficacy in teachers, the higher levels of growth on assessments. So we see the independent variable here on the left, level of efficacy, and we see the way that it is coded, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Is the independent variable categorical or is it continuous?
Categorical.
Absolutely. Now, what scale of measurement is it? Now, you've taken it, so it can't be interval or ratio because now it's categorical. You've brought it down. Let me see here. If I can find that slide, crud. Nope, not gonna work.
Ordinal.
Ordinal.
Absolutely. 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 Okay. What is the dependent variable categorical or continuous?
Categorical.
It would be continuous.
It's categorical.
Let me think.
Can't have more A than B.
Can you explain?
Yeah, so you have taken 100 and all the way to 90, and you've put it into a category, a very distinct category of A. And then so on and so forth until you go down to 0. So now that you've taken the quantity out and put it into A, B, C, D, and F, they're very, very distinct categories. And so obviously it is categorical. And in most cases, we would consider this to be not nominal, but what?
Ordinal?
Ordinal, right, because we would say that this is sort of going down. There's order to this, right? Those who are A students are considered what compared to D students? A little better, right? A little more, there's something to that. But if I said, if you're a Republican and I'm a Democrat, I wouldn't say that you're more American because you're a Republican versus being a Democrat. You follow me? Cool. I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You were there laughing.
I don't have a question, but the next one we do, can we move a little slower as far as answers? Just because I was still stuck on the independent and dependent part. Like I'm still trying to do all of it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And are there any questions here?
No, I get it. It was just, I was still stuck on making sure I was seeing dependent and independent. And so then when you started moving on to the next part, I was just lost. So
yeah, no problem. There's 3 different questions that we're asking here. What's the independent and dependent variable? whether it's categorical or continuous. And then I want to find, give me a second, y'all. I want to find that slide that I did before. I know I probably passed it. There it is. All right, so once you determine whether it's categorical or continuous, then it can only be one of two scales of measurement. You follow me? So then you determine whether it's going to either be nominal or ordinal, or interval or ratio. But yes, I will be more than happy to slow it down so that we can get it. We all be on the same page here. All right. Excuse me. All right. There is no relationship between leadership styles and job satisfaction at universities. What kind of, so this is a hypothesis. This is a bonus question here. What kind of hypothesis is this?
Non-directional.
Tanya, you were supposed to offer us some think time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I right? I'm sorry.
It could be considered a type of non-directional, but I'm looking for whether it's an alternate or a null hypothesis.
No.
No.
No. Good. Okay. All right, let's get into the independent variable and the dependent variable. What's the independent variable? And this displayed here.
Leadership styles.
Leadership styles. And what's the dependent variable?
Job satisfaction.
So let's take a step further back here, because a lot of times I'm throwing out a whole ton of words. Someone explain to me why this matters.
Why what matters?
Why this whole hypothesis would matter at all? Why should I care if there's a relationship between leadership styles and job satisfaction at universities? Why should I care at all?
Retaining your employees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It could also go as far as student enrollment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And hiring practices.
Mm-hmm. And if you are making a decision between whether to go to you got two job offers, and one is an autocratic chancellor and the other is a Democrat chancellor or laissez-faire chancellor, you then get to determine whether or not, what is my personality style, work style line up with, right? And then you're able to make a decision. So that's why it's important to have that kind of information, not, if it is available, okay? All right, so is the independent variable, is it categorical or continuous?
Hold on now, we need think time, okay?
For sure, for sure.
You say, is it categorical?
Or continuous. And I'm gonna ask you all the question, would you like to drop it into the chat? Or would you just like to, to say it in a couple of seconds?
No,
we can just say it in a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Categorical.
That's right. That's right. Now that you've narrowed it down as a categorical and it's nominal or ordinal, which one is it?
Ordinal.
Nominal.
Nominal.
Leadership style. Is that what we're referring to?
But I thought with satisfaction, you're miserable. It's like a scale,
I
miserable.
thought we were doing leadership style.
Leadership style is
Oh.
nominal.
That's nominal.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And then job satisfaction would be ordinal.
Ordinal.
That's correct. And if it's ordinal, what kind of variable is it?
So can you repeat the question?
Categorical.
It's categorical.
Right. If it's an ordinal variable, what kind of variable is it? And that's absolutely right. I will tell you, this may, I'm going to take a quick pause here for 20 seconds. This may seem daunting and a little brain hurty, but you all are doing really well. You're doing very, very well. You're not fighting back. I've had that experience, so thank you. You're taking this very well. Okay. There's no relationship between the race of a principal and African American student achievement. I'm going to take a step back again and offer a bonus question. What kind of hypothesis is this?
No.
No.
Absolutely. Okay.
Get a chance to read it. One of my classmates.
All right.
Oh,
okay. What is the independent variable?
The race.
The principal's race.
That's right. What is the dependent variable?
Student achievement. African American
African American student achievement.
Bingo. Okay. What kind of variable, categorical or continuous, is the independent variable principal race?
Categorical.
Absolutely. Is it nominal or ordinal?
Nominal.
Nominal?
Nominal.
Why?
Because it's either white or non-white.
And there's no order.
There's no ranking.
There's no ranking
Right.
on. Am I thinking correctly on how white you are or how non-white you are?
No. Yeah, you don't want to do that. That is, yeah.
Okay.
There's no, you're not going to put white above non-white, and you're not going to put non-white. It could go either way, right?
Right.
You could just be whatever. Now, is this a dichotomous variable?
It is.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
In fact, I was sitting here thinking about that. I was going to say that, but glad you brought it up.
No. Shout it out. I love feedback. All right, let's get into the dependent variable here. I think we established, is it categorical or continuous?
Wait.
Categorical. Yeah, categorical.
Yeah, categorical.
it's continuous. Achievement is continuous.
But I thought it was based off of
But
the
you got
African
the
American
categories
student.
though. You either
It's
got
on an interval.
30, 20, 10, or no.
So this would be
Wait.
considered.
Are we looking at student achievement? I thought it was just African American student achievement.
We are looking at African American student achievement. And next time I'm going to write this differently. I'm going to put GPA because it does look categorical. But it should be GPA.
Okay, I got it.
And if I said GPA, it would be what?
Continuous.
It will be continuous because it can be anything between 0.1 or 0.0 to 4.0. In this way, I can see how it looks categorical because it looks like 4.0, 3.0. And if I said that, if I rounded up people and put them into those categories, then that would be categorical. But in terms of, but yeah.
Angela got locked out and she's trying to get back in.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Let me see here.
Oh, she missed it.
Here it is. Okay, boom.
Dr. Munn, can you go back quickly to the nominal or ordinal slide? I think I missed that. I don't think. Somehow I missed it. I'm like, let me just show me what the slide looks like, and I'm gonna go back and review it. But just I missed this. I missed that. I don't know what happened.
No problem at all. Here it is. Is this the one you're talking about?
Where it explains the difference. Okay, so that's the difference between nominal and ordinal.
Yeah. So they're in categories, but nominal just doesn't have any. Nominal doesn't have any order. So marital status, birthplace, color of hair, position on the football team, gender, religious affiliation, and race and ethnicity. And you can think of it this way. If I went out here and I said, I'm gonna put men on top every time, we have a problem. If I said that white folk were above black folk, I have a problem. If I said Protestants were better than Catholics, we'd have a what? Problem. So that's when you can think about it. If I'm going to put these things in order and I'm gonna create some social division here, then it's probably nominal, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, and where's the slide for ordinal?
Yeah, let's see here. Ordinal. Boom. So then here are distinct categories: job satisfaction, condition of health. I would say good health is better than poor health. Sometimes, I would say marital happiness would be better. Happy, I would rank happy, or I would rank, and depending on what the research question was asking. If the research question was around, here's a great example: income and loss of male income. And I want to see if loss of male income in marriage had an impact on marital happiness. I might put, dissatisfied on top of the Likert scale, but then it would still be in order. You follow me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Social class. And when I mean social class, I don't mean race or gender. I mean just pure, I've taken 0 to 20,000 and put into working class, and then
gotcha. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Academic degrees and all that, the rest. Okay? That makes sense?
Yes. Thank you.
No problem at all. And if anyone has questions, please, because this is foundational. I really can't, once we get into modeling all these concepts, we have to have at least some sort of set, some sort of understanding of thought. Cool. All right. The level of social consciousness of principal influences African American achievement. What is the independent variable?
Level of social consciousness.
Mm-hmm. And what is the level of social consciousness or leader consciousness having an impact or perceived impact on?
African American achievement.
Right. Okay. Is the independent variable categorical or continuous? That first word should give you a hint.
Continuous.
Absolutely. Anytime you see scale, that's continuous. 100 times out of 100. All right.
I'm muting y'all.
Is that scale? Is that interval or is that ratio? Does that have a true zero? If I have 0 there, does that mean that leader has no consciousness?
No.
Right. So that would be a what?
Interval.
Absolutely. And if we are saying let's take out let's take this out and say, let's just say GPA. All right, because I'm not going to make that mistake again. Dependent variable, GPA, categorical or continuous?
Continuous.
And what scale of measurement?
Interval.
Interval.
Yes. Who said interval?
We did.
Tell me why.
But can't you have a 0.0?
Because you go from 0 to 4.
Right. To 4.0, 3.0.
And if you tell me that it's just it's one of the examples,
We have a true 0, right? Is that what we're saying as well?
No,
no, it does not have a true zero.
It's not
Because
true.
if I went to school, I could be the smartest person coming out of my school, and I can get a 0.0 GPA. That does not mean I have no intelligence. It is not.
Oh, yeah, because we said 0 for this means no knowledge. I was just looking in terms of going from 0 to 1 to 2. Like we had okay.
Cool. All righty. Let's keep it moving here. If there are more restorative practices present in schools, there will be fewer suspensions of African American female students. And these are hypotheses from my previous students.
Wait, Dr. Munn, can I ask a question?
Sure. Yeah.
Can that be a actual research right there?
Oh yeah. This was I'm not sure if that person followed through with that research, but yeah. Well, and this is actually a question, so forgive my grammatical error there. Wait. If there's no. I'm tripping. Woo! Long week, y'all. Long week. Forgive you, boy. Long week. So what's the independent variable here?
Restorative practices present.
Yep. Having an impact on what?
Suspensions of African American females.
That's right. Now, so we have a scale here. What is the independent variable? I mean, what is the independent variable categorical or continuous?
Continuous.
And what's the scale of measurement?
Are you saying?
Who said interval?
Oh, right.
Right. See, it's the same. It's the same as before. We're using the same scale, so it's interval. Okay. The dependent variable is what? Categorical or continuous?
Continuous.
Yep. Absolutely. And what scale of measurement?
Ratio.
Absolutely. There's a true 0 there. If there are 0 suspensions, there are 0 suspensions. There are none. Okay. If there's 750, there's 750. So yeah. And this will be a really interesting study. We expect that if campuses were more culturally representative of their student bodies, there will be a higher level of self-esteem amongst students of color. I recognize these are a little clunky, but I was taking early in the semester, I was taking their ideas and turning it into hypotheses. So I'm just going to help along with this one. The independent variable here is the perception of cultural representativeness. So we're just going to say the percentage of non-white students as a measure of that perception, okay? And that is going to be obviously a continuous variable, but what scale of measurement? If I have 0% non-white folk, how many non-white students, what is that? Is that
0.
that interval or is that ratio?
Ratio.
Absolutely. Now let's move over here to dependent variable, levels of self-esteem. Now I've gone through, I've gotten the survey. I've given the survey to every student in the school, and they mark low, medium, high. What kind of variable is that?
Categorical.
Absolutely. And is that ordinal?
Ordinal.
Absolutely. Right. All right, I'm going to skip those. And it is 11:48. And so next week we will start with a lesson on SPSS. We will start talking about frequencies, measures of central tendency. Here's just a sneak peek of a couple of those slides: mean, median, and mode, maximum. We're going to be playing with the data sets, and then we're going to be able to, you'll be able to tell me, what are the extremes in these data pieces. You'll be able to make some inferences from these, or not inferences, we'll be able to describe what the data is telling us just from these really simple tests. So if anyone's having any issues downloading or using SPSS, holler at me. Happy to work through all of that. It is 11:49. I think we've had a lot thrown at you. So don't want to just go around if you have to hop off, please feel free. But I just want to go around and ask folk, how are you feeling and what can be made? How are you feeling? And yeah, what's good? Tell me what's on your mind.
Dr. Munn, I feel like this is almost like the preface we should have had for even the other statistical class, the statistics class.
Agreed.
Yes, we should have had this a long time ago.
Yeah, this should have been probably one of the first classes.
Yes, last fall.
Yeah,
Yes.
because now it's causing me to kind of rethink like my hypothesis. Like these are really thought-provoking questions that I wish I would have considered before I could nail down, so to speak, research topics.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it almost seems like it should come before qualitative and quantitative, so that.
It is quantitative.
No, well, this gives us a better idea.
The class, if we had it earlier, I don't know, I feel like it's making some of the things Dr. Kanuka was talking about clearer to me.
Good. I want us to be able to flow. Good.
Dr. Munn, will this presentation be available so I can download? I mean, so I can copy, because I can write notes. Okay. And since you're going to continue with this next week, I can go ahead and make copies.
I'll hold back the slides 131 to 154, the slides for next week, because that's you're not going to be. Yeah, I'm just going to do the ones that we covered today.
Oh, great. Okay, so I'll have access to it because I need to print those slides out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'll be in PDF format. I'll get those up in a couple hours here, and I will try to figure out how I'm going to post this recording. I'll probably link it to my Dropbox so that you can pull up. The recording if you want to just go back and hear in context what we were talking about.
That would be great. Okay.
Do we have to do anything for this week?
Just read. I'm glad you said that. Just read Hoy and Adams pages 45 and 47, and take a look at handout 5. That should be in your course materials section. Yeah, and yeah, and I have refreshed the syllabus. There was some reading in there that you didn't need to do, so I pulled those out. There's less, not more.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Cool. Any more questions? Thanks for that, y'all. That's really helpful.
Is all our work still due on Friday?
Is your what? I don't think you have anything due on Friday.
No, I'm saying like, are all our assignments, the ones that we do have, are still on a Friday?
Yes.
So to answer your question, which has nothing to do with this class, I feel irritated now because both of my neighbors on both sides of me have cut their grass, so now I feel like I have to cut mine. So that they've been cutting their grass during this whole class time. But anyway, that has nothing to do with this, but I just thought I'd share.
Well, it's how we started the class on what are you doing this weekend? Anybody doing any yard work?
It's peer pressure.
Yeah, so now, right, exactly. Now I feel like I need to go cut my grass.
That is really good feedback. I will pass that along to the chair because we want all this. We want you to have the best experience possible and be the most prepared to be the amazing leaders that you already are, even more amazing. So thank you.
I appreciate your teaching style, Dr. Munn. Thank you so much.
Well, yes. Thank you. That's helpful. That's very helpful. I appreciate it.
So what is the independent variable there, Vonda?
Say again. I see what you did there. That's
Very nice.
what you did there. That was smooth. Next week I'll have a external. I'll have a video camera, so I'll be able to show my Blackboard and be able to write and stuff. So if that'll be helpful. I don't want to be standing in front of a computer just going through slides the whole time. So I'll be hopefully I'll be able to add that to it. So, okay, it is 11:54. I am impeding on your weekend. Have a wonderful weekend. If you need me for anything, give me a holler, Mr. Hernandez. If there's if that extraction doesn't work, give me a holler, and we'll get you straight.
I did try it and it did not work for me. Putting it on my desktop.
Okay, let's hop on after this. I'll send you a meeting invite.
Thank you.
No problem. Take care, all.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend.